Stardust is an unofficial biopic showing the early years of David Bowie's career. It shows Bowie attempting to head to America to tour for his new album, The Man Who Sold the World. On the trip, he starts questioning himself and invents his biggest character, Ziggy Stardust. Alright, a little bit ago I saw that this was added to Crave, and since I've been getting into David Bowie recently, I have reactions for songs and first time listening videos for his albums. I was like, okay, I'm going to check this out, and all those videos are linked down below and up here. The reviews were all over the place here, but they more so swayed to the negative side, but I was still going to go in with an open mind because I tend to like more movies than dislike them. A lot of people are like, do you hate any movies? Well, I hated this one. When the movie ended, I was like, okay, I watched something I didn't enjoy, but I was going to try to be at least nice in the review. Obviously give a negative review, but try to be nice. But then I went onto IMDb and read that they made this film without permission from David Bowie's family, so I'm going to be very blunt and honest here. This film is terrible. I suggest you stay far away from it because it barely skims the surface of Bowie's early years. A film like this should be equally entertaining and informative, but it's neither. Director Gabriel Range finds the most bland way to tell this story. That's one of my biggest problems with the movie, and remember, we're talking about David Bowie here, and this movie is dull and bland. David Bowie? Dull and bland. They don't mix. Within the first 20 minutes of this film, I honestly thought this was a student film. Like, I was like, how did some professionals make this? How did some big companies license this? I don't really know. And because they didn't have permission from Bowie's family, they couldn't use any of his music, and it's so obvious in so many scenes because there's plenty of moments in this film that just feel empty because they're lacking Bowie's amazing music. Johnny Flynn takes on the impossible task of attempting to play David Bowie. I'll admit he was probably the best thing about the movie because he was alright. He had the speaking voice of Bowie down, not so much the singing, but he did his own, so that makes sense. He's a talented guy, but basically every other aspect of the movie takes away from his performance. The majority of the supporting cast is a big problem here too because they're just so annoying and they take you out of the film, and again, part of that does have to do with some of the script. Some of the dialogue is horrendous, and I do feel bad for the actors, but there are some. I won't be too specific. Like I said, I'm going to be blunt. I don't like to just straight up pick on actors because their job is difficult, but oh my god, there were some scenes that were painful to watch. The main plot of this film is that Bowie, or if you can even really call him that in this movie, and his manager Rob Oberman go to America because Rob had planned this tour for him, but it ended up just being small gigs where no one really pays attention to him. The biggest problem with that is that that's majority of the movie. It's just Bowie and Rob Oberman sitting in a car for 10 minutes. They're driving to the place, they arrive at the gig, and they're kind of getting ready, and he's like, don't be weird, and then he goes up on stage in like his dresses that he always wore, which looked so cool, and then no one pays attention to him, and then Rob somehow gets someone to talk to Bowie, and then Bowie does something different because that's just the way he was. That fails, they go back in the car and Rob yells at him, and then that just repeats, I think like 6 or 7 times here. And the big side plot of this movie has to deal with Terry, who is David Bowie's stepbrother, and he has schizophrenia. And at first when they present this, it's like, okay, this is a cool idea. They kind of play around with it for a bit, but then they do it like 6 or 7 times. Like, they take something that seems like a cool idea in this movie, and then they do it over and over and over and over and over again, and they get so repetitive and so annoying. They even use the same shots for this. All this stuff with Terry, a lot of it is just this hallway shot. And the film opens with like Bowie, he's dreaming, and because obviously Space Oddity had been taken from 2001: A Space Odyssey, they take like the ending sequence, you know, where it's like shaking all in our lead character's face, and we see the colors going to the sides like this. Also, I'm gonna talk about the last 20 minutes of this film here, so if you don't want this movie spoiled for you, then I suggest going to this time code because that's just when I've covered everything. But it's not really a spoiler because it happened kind of in real life, although when this movie opens, it says this is mostly fiction or something, like something, I'm paraphrasing, it says something like that. You don't want your movie opening with that. It's well promoted that this is like the discovery of Ziggy Stardust here, but he only shows up within the last 15-20 minutes of the movie. And the movie is called Stardust. A lot of the posters have like the lightning bolt from like Aladdin Sane, obviously, but all we see of him is him putting on makeup, costume, going on stage performing one song, boom, movie's done. Thank God the movie's done, but still. And you won't believe the way that the movie portrays it. Now, I don't know if this is real or not. Someone could correct me. It doesn't seem like it would be. It seems all too fake, and because this movie said it was mainly fiction, which is stupid anyway. Basically, how he invents Ziggy Stardust here is that he takes his stepbrother Terry back to the mental institute, and as he's like watching the patients kind of deal with their issues in a way, what they do is that they act as someone else to like get away from the pain. So in a very obvious shot, he just like runs away, boom, next scene he's Ziggy Stardust. And the red mullet looked horrible. That is the most in-your-face way they could have done it at all. And as I mentioned, we see the actual like character of Ziggy Stardust for maybe 15-20 minutes of the movie. He goes on stage with the Spiders from Mars, they perform one song, and the movie ends. And it's just like, where did this all come from? Of course, when the movie gets slightly interesting, now I do have a lot of problems with the end, but I will not ramble on a ton. Ramble on. Let's just say I shouldn't be checking my watch when I'm watching a biopic about my favorite solo artist of all time. Stardust is the most lifeless attempt at capturing the early years of one of the greatest musicians to ever live. Although Johnny Flynn is alright as David Bowie, almost every other aspect takes away from his performance. Considering they didn't get permission from his family, this is a disgrace of a biopic, and I suggest you stay far away from it. I'm going to give Stardust a 1 out of 5. I had to bump it up to a 1. As the movie went along, it just went down, 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 and down. I was going to give it 0.5, but then I was like, okay, Johnny Flynn is alright, and there are parts that are interesting, there are some good ideas that are presented, but you have one of the most like colorful, flamboyant, and exciting artists ever, especially because this is capturing his early years when he was Ziggy Stardust too, well, for 20 minutes still. And then you make it in the most dull way possible, even with the color grading. This movie was a disaster. I do not recommend checking it out. I mean, you basically know it all. If you know anything, if you know even surface level things about Bowie, you basically know everything they show you in this movie. I do not recommend checking this one out at all. It's awful. But thank you all for watching, and tell me what you thought of this film down below, because maybe you guys liked it, and if you did, of course, good on you. It's always better to enjoy something than dislike it. It's all opinion. We just gotta remember that. Personally, I did not enjoy it, but if you did, let me know why and all that down below. And thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Over and out.